You don't need to be perfect. You just want to make sure that you're prepared and that you sound thoughtful and capable. You want to stay calm. You don't need to convince them that you're worthy. You're just trying to show them that you're ready to do this.
This is the Back to Work podcast for stay-at-home moms who are thinking about going back to work but terrified about what that means. Maybe you're facing resume gaps or a few outdated skills, not to mention juggling kids, life, and well, everything. We get it. We've been there and we've got you. We know this isn't just about getting work. It's about finding a job that fits you and your life. Every week, you'll hear tips, advice, and stories, all designed to help you go back to work. Hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode.
Welcome, everybody, to Back to Work, the podcast for stay-at-home moms going back to work and aren't quite sure where to start. So we talk about everything about going back to work. We've had episodes that talk about all the emotions, all the logistics. We've had some episodes about what to put in your resume, what not to put in your resume, how to talk about the gap in your resume, all that stuff. So today, what we're talking about is what happens after you hit submit. You're on Indeed or wherever and find a job and you hit submit, and then what happens? What do you do? How should you prepare? So we're going to go through all of the things that I think are important to think about after you hit submit. So for those of you who might be new to the podcast, my name is Carrie McFarland. I'm a certified life coach. I also have almost 20 years experience in HR. So I've done a lot with resumes. I've done a lot with interviewing. I've also done a lot personally with my own resume and finding jobs. And so all of that information I try to put together for everybody so you can be empowered and confident when you decide that it's time for you to get back into the workforce and find that job. I also have Angie Turgeon-Ledoux here. She
Hello.
is my co-host, and she is an intuitive life coach who coaches women who want clarity in their life through tarot and some life coaching methods. Angie, if you want to talk about that a little bit before we get started.
It's the intuitive part of the life coaching is applying intuitive tools like astrology, basic astrology, numerology, and using oracle cards and tarot cards to help support your own personal growth, specific for midlife women who are trying to figure out what's next.
I think that pairs pretty nicely with what we're doing here when you are going from a stay-at-home mom back into the workforce. There's a lot more to it than just finding a job. So let's get into the different steps about what happens after you hit submit. I have 5 or 6 things here that I'm going to talk about. The first one is the moment you hit apply. So you've done all the work, you've listened to all our podcasts previously, so you know exactly
course.
what to put in your resume. You know exactly how to talk about the gap. You sit down, you find a job, you hit apply. Now what? What do you
Besides
do?
quaking in your shoes.
Right, right. That moment that you hit submit, and then
What
you're
have I
like,
done?
what do I do? So the first thing is, and I think this is very important, you want to keep your energy up, okay? Not an anxious energy, but keep your energy up, keep it high. The thing that I want you to remember is once you hit submit, and this is the mistake that I think a lot of people make. Once you hit submit, you're not waiting and hoping that somebody gets back to you.
It's not the passive response, like,
Right.
okay, fingers crossed.
Right. Exactly. You're not waiting and hoping. You are expecting and preparing. You will get calls back. Okay. Having said that, a lot of people will not call you back, and that's okay. Okay. That has nothing to do with you specifically. There's a million different reasons that people don't get callbacks. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is, and it's understandable, we all do this, right? We take it personally. They don't like me. They don't want me.
Right.
Okay. They don't even know you. So it has nothing to do with you. It might be about your skills. Your skills just don't quite fit what they're looking for. That's not good or bad. That's just how it is, okay? It might be availability. They might have already filled the job, but the job is, it's still out there on Indeed because it just hasn't been taken down. It also could be capacity of either the recruiters or the hiring manager getting through the resumes, because depending on what the job is, they could be getting hundreds of resumes for that job. And depending on how their recruiting is set up, there is a real possibility that they're not getting through all of those resumes because it's just not possible. So just keep that in mind. Do not take it personally, okay? Thinking that you'll never hear back is also not something that you want in your head. Again, you want to expect and prepare. Once you hit submit, learn about the company. Go online, find out something about it. Take notes. Keep it somewhere easy to find so when you're ready to talk to them, you have that on hand. Prepare your voicemail. This is important. Make sure your voicemail is, even if it's just the standard greeting, the standard greeting with the, you have reached this number, that's fine. But if you have some sort of personalized voicemail that when you listen to it might not sound so professional, maybe you have people talking in the background, maybe you did it when you were, I don't know, walking down the street or something and you're hearing background noise, like redo it or use a standard greeting, okay? That's very important. And then practice a few key conversation points. So think about what they might ask you, or think about a couple of things that you want to highlight about yourself, and just have that in mind for when people call you back. Because the second thing is that phone screen, that initial call that you get after you've sent out your resume, it's not just a call. It's not just a casual meet and greet, okay? It's a filter. It's a filter that is used by recruiters to either kick you out of the process or get you to the next step. And you might have all of the skills that they're looking for. And, this is the classic, it looks great on paper, which is why you're getting the call, which is fantastic. That's the first step. The second step is make sure you're prepared for that call. The way that you come across in the phone call is sometimes more important than what you even have to say. Does that make sense to you, Angela?
Yeah, because this is your opportunity to show your personality. It's your opportunity
Yep.
to show your excitement and your preparation for the position.
Right. Right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't come across necessarily on your paper.
It shows how you're able to communicate with people. Do you come across as confident? Do you have that, high vibe that they're looking for? Or are you treating it like it's no big deal? Either way, that energy is going to show, and they're going to make a determination about whether or not you move on based on that call. And this is important. Environment, this is number 3. Environment matters. And it matters more than you think, okay? So when you're thinking about that call and coming across in a way that shows that you're able to communicate clearly and confidently and you're empowered and all those things, where you take that call matters. If you are in a place that sounds chaotic, if you have kids in the background either playing or yelling or crying, and yes, I understand that that is a part of life, but also you need to take that into consideration when you pick up the phone. Those things matter. So you don't want to just take the call and wing it wherever you are. If you are not in a good place to take that call, then do not answer the phone. Okay. And also as a follow-up to that. And I say these things because these are things I've experienced as somebody who has recruited, that people will take the phone call in all of these places that do not lend itself well to an interview, even if the interview is only 5 minutes long. So don't answer the phone if you're not in a good place, and don't answer the phone and then tell them it's not a good time to talk. Because if it's not a good time to talk, then don't answer the phone. That puts people off, and they'll be pleasant and they'll be nice and they'll say, "Oh, no problem, and we can talk again." And it's honestly 50-50 if you'll get a call back after that. So just let it go to voicemail, get the information, and then respond to them as soon as you can, either through the phone or sometimes they'll leave an email or they'll text you, and respond to that as soon as you can and give them some times that are better for you. That shows nice thought process. It shows professionalism. It shows that you care about that interview. You can't just take it wherever you are. You don't want to be distracted because you're trying to have an interview with kids in the background. You don't want to come across as indifferent because you can't hear everything they're saying and then maybe you mishear them and then you give an answer that's not quite right. It just sounds like you're not listening. And you want to know things about the company. And so it's best to have some notes in front of you when you take that call, if you can, or try to remember as best you can about the company. And you don't have to remember every little detail, but just high level stuff like what they do, maybe how long they've been around, and if you can find out like how many people work there, stuff like that. Just basic things, just so they know that you took the time to learn about the company. It makes a big difference. Angie, what are some of your experiences with that? I know that you've done recruiting as well. So have you had any of those instances
I
talking to people?
I think when somebody shows an interest in what your work environment is like and what, what the culture is like or something like that, that always, to me, is like, "Oh, they want us." They want us as much as we're looking for the right person.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, and that's exactly
it matters.
what it shows. You don't have to know every little detail, every little in and out of the company, like their revenue stream and stuff like that. You don't need to know that stuff. It's really the gesture, like kind of like what you said, like they're really interested in me because an interview really is a two-way street. You are learning about them as much as they are learning about you, and they want to be the subject of interest just as much as you do. So it makes a big difference. Let's talk about what you should and shouldn't say when you're in a phone screen. We already talked about showing genuine interest, just learning the basics about the company. When you're talking about yourself, again, because the initial phone interview typically is shorter. So you want to have some strengths about yourself, just kind of top of mind. You want to think about your top 2 or 3 strengths that you want to make sure that you convey during the conversation. Sometimes that won't always be possible based on the way the conversation goes, but if you have it top of mind, chances are you'll be able to get it in there somehow. So it's just really good to kind of practice what you think your top strengths are, okay? And also beyond the company, demonstrate that you really kind of understand what the job entails itself. So, I mean, obviously we all see the job posting on Indeed when we do that. So, go over that and think about what it is, like kind of try to read between the lines. What is it that they are looking for in a person beyond what is in there? Try to read between the lines and then speak to it like you are going to provide them value in that job, and not in an arrogant way, but in a confident way. But that's something that you need to believe in order to do that in a way that is genuine. And that is about looking at that job description or the job posting and learning about the company, picturing yourself in that role, and then thinking about how you would approach certain things based on whatever the role is. Some roles are going to be easier to do that with than others, and that's fine, but you just want to make sure that you're projecting genuine confidence rather than being boastful or arrogant. And sometimes it's a fine line. A lot of people don't want to highlight their strengths because they do feel like they're going to be boastful. I don't want to toot my own horn, and I don't want to, I don't want to come across as, somebody who thinks I'm better than everybody. And that's not what I'm talking about. So again, that's kind of why you need to practice it. So let's talk about what you should not say. You don't want to overshare and dump your whole life story on somebody when they say, "Tell me about yourself." um,
Comfortable.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you want to, again, have some top things in mind to talk about, a little bit of personal, a little bit professional, a little bit future. And thinking about what you want to say and how you want to say it is going to take a little bit of prep and practice, and that's okay. It's not cheating to do that. And some people think that's cheating. It's not cheating. You want to be prepared. Don't talk negatively about past jobs that you've had or past coworkers or your situation. When I'm recruiting people, I always ask them why they left their last job. Now, moms going back to work have a built-in answer for that. I left to stay and take care of my kids. Regardless of if there are other circumstances involved with that other job, that's what you say. Now, if they ask about other jobs, that's fine. You want to find something that's true about why you left, that's not negative, that's not bashing that job, that's not, talking about your boss in a negative way or your coworkers, okay? That's just going to make you look bad in the eyes of that employer who's interviewing you. They're going to assume that in a few years that you're going to do the same thing to them, and they're going to want nothing to do with you. So just that's very important. And keep your answers short. Clear answers. Answer what is asked as best you can. Extrapolate a little bit, but again, don't go on and on and on. Just keep focused to the questions that they're asking you. And the last thing is about what you should not say is don't negotiate your salary or your schedule in that step. Unless you are asked specifically, because sometimes they'll ask you what your availability is, and then you just want to tell them. You don't want to give them excuses or reasons, or it doesn't matter what the reason is. But other than that, don't talk about that. That's something that should be saved for after you are made the offer of the job. So unless you are asked, don't talk about that. And not even in the main interview. You want to wait until after after you are offered the job. Now, I also want to say, don't wait until after you accept the job and then go back and say, by the way, I need the schedule. That is something that I have seen many times, and it never goes well because you've already accepted the job as they've offered it, and now a day later, you want to change it. So that's not starting your job off on the right foot. Angie, what is the, I don't know, most egregious thing that you've seen from candidates when they're talking and about themselves and things that they maybe shouldn't have said?
I think the oversharing is one. You don't have to do that. You think that it's helping them get to know you and perhaps think how serious you are about the job because, you have this strong family that you are supporting in some way. And that's not necessary. Right. What they're looking for is, can you do the job? Would you be a good fit with the current team? Are you serious? Are you focused? Do you have the skill set that we need? That's what they're looking for.
Exactly. That's exactly what they're looking for. And the way that they're going to determine that is how you present yourself during that first interview, during the main interview. And we'll have an episode about the main interview because there could be several pieces to that.
Right.
And I know the interview, like the phone interview is hard for some people. The in-person interview, and sometimes the in-person interview is now virtual and sometimes it's actually in person, but that's the one, especially if you're out of practice, can really kind of trip people up because people get nervous. I mean, understandably so, but I just want to kind of recap what we talked about because we talked about a lot. So the moment you hit apply, just keep your energy up. You're expecting and preparing for that phone call that you're going to get. And don't take it personally that you sent out 10 resumes and only got 1 or 2 callbacks. That's normal. So don't worry about that. The phone screen is not just a call. It is a filter. It is a filter that the company uses to move people to the next step. So you want to make sure that you are communicating well, that you come across confident, you're not distracted. You want to know a little bit about the company. Your environment matters more than you think. You want to make sure that you're in a place where you are able to focus. There's not a lot of background noise, and you certainly don't want to answer the call and then tell them that you cannot talk. Just don't take the call, let it go to voicemail, and contact them as soon as you're able to, when you're able to focus. What you should say in a phone screen, what you shouldn't say in a phone screen. You just want to come across as genuine. You want to know a little bit about the company. You want to communicate your strengths clearly. You want to demonstrate that you understand what the job is and what they need. That's the important piece, what they need for that job. And you just want to speak to that with conviction. You don't want to come across arrogant. You just want to come across confident. Some things that you shouldn't say, don't overshare. They don't need to know your whole life story. Don't talk negative about your past jobs or your past boss. Find something positive about each job that you've had and only talk about that. Keep your answers short and clear, and just keep focused to the question that they're asking you, and don't negotiate your salary or your schedule yet. That's for when after the offer is made and before you accept it. So that's when you want to do that. So just to recap all of that, the energy you bring is very important. You don't need to be perfect. You just want to make sure that you're prepared and that you sound thoughtful and capable. You want to stay calm. You don't need to convince them that you're worthy. You're just trying to show them that you're ready to do this. And the way that you talk about yourself and answer their questions is what's going to show that. And I do have some free resources about finding a job. We have a newsletter and we have a resume audit. So there are some ways to get some help with this for free. There's lots of free resources. So it's carriemcfarland.com is my website, but that will be in the show notes. So, all right. I think we're going to leave it there. And I hope everybody has a great week.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening. Your support means the world to us. If this episode resonated with you, we invite you to subscribe to the podcast, share with another mom, and explore the links in the show notes. Remember, you and all moms deserve support on your journey back to work.